All right. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for how to maintain your sanity while working from home. I just want to let you know that you can ask questions at any time during this presentation by using the control panel for GoToMeeting. So, without further ado, let's get started here. All right. My name is Michelle Wheeler, and I am a junior partner and website developer at PSM Marketing. I live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I'm a graduate of St. Olaf College, where I studied English and women's and gender studies. I have a home office that I'm very proud of. It's full of all sorts of fun little knickknacks, and it's one place in my house that really brings me energy. So I'm excited to share some tips regarding that with you today. And finally, I'm a dog mom. These are my little fur babies, Nova and Margot. All right, so for our agenda today, we're going to be briefly touching on PSM's virtual model of outsourced marketing. We're going to talk about work-life balance, and we're really going to dive into some tips for remote working. And finally, I'm going to leave you with some resources I think you're going to find very helpful. As I mentioned earlier, I am a junior partner and website developer at Professional Services Marketing. We are a virtual marketing company that was founded in 1997 by my mom, Terry Wheeler. And our virtual model is actually something that's really unique to PSM and something that really set us apart from the competition way back in, the early 90s. It was pretty much unheard of to be a virtual marketing firm. We provide outsourced marketing to our clients, meaning they hire us as an external company that comes in. And we serve primarily the legal and financial industries. That's really how we got started at PSM, but now our services have expanded to include contractors, nonprofits, and small businesses. So the cool thing about having a virtual company is that all of our resources, all of my coworkers are really spread across the entire world. We have people working in Canada and in India, and the vast majority of our resources are based in Minnesota. But it's really cool just to have that really global appeal as a company. And we do try to meet in person about once a year. We do happy hours and holiday parties. And it's just been really, really fun and cool to develop these really personal relationships with people in a completely virtual sense. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about the status quo up until now, which has been, you're used to waking up for work, showering, getting your coffee, commuting, and settling in at the office, right? You had the ability to be on when you were dealing with coworkers and off when you were home with your friends and family. Your life had structure. Your life had routine. You were used to it. It was comfortable, right? And then came COVID-19. So thanks to COVID-19, a lot of your daily routine has probably been pretty drastically changed. On March 11th, 2020, the CDC announced that COVID-19 had become a true global pandemic. Schools, restaurants, gyms, libraries, museums, and countless other establishments are just straight up closed. Social distancing is a new term in our collective consciousness. And for many professionals, this has meant, bringing your laptop home and working remotely. And a lot of people have lost their jobs or been furloughed. Our economy is in total shambles, and there is a literal global pandemic ravaging humanity. So while we're trying to find ways to cope, when it feels like the world is burning around us, it can be pretty tough. And a lot of us are really, really struggling to find a new normal during this time. So believe it or not, there's actually sort of a hidden opportunity in this time of uncertainty. There's a chance for us to hit the reset button on our relationship with work. So first, we're going to talk here about attaining work-life balance. So working from home is a really, really great opportunity to establish healthy habits that will carry through beyond this current public health crisis. And remote working can give you a really phenomenal taste of work-life balance, but only if you let it. It's still very, very possible to allow yourself to become overworked and stressed, but working from home gives you the ability to truly structure your own day in your own way. So when I did an image search on Google for work-life balance, I was inundated with images like this: work and life as opposite ends of a binary, your professional self or your casual self, two worlds that shall never overlap. And I realized that framing work and life as opposing forces really sets up a false choice. We're not robots or 2D illustrations. We're complex, multifaceted beings, right? So what we're really dealing with here when we're talking about work-life balance is compartmentalization. So, we're not just your work self and your private self. We're actually, multifaceted people, and there are all sorts of elements that come into play in our daily lives, right? I mean, we're dealing with current events such as COVID-19, politics, the economy, the elections. We're juggling our work life, right? Maintaining job security, managing deadlines, using new technology, handling bosses and coworkers and professional relationships, and navigating a new workspace, and still trying to manage our productivity. Then on top of that, we also have our personal life, right? We have parents, partners, children, friends, pets, happy hours, neighbors, and community engagement that we're still trying to maintain some semblance of grip on, right? And then we also have our own personal wellness, our self-care, our happiness, our hobbies, spirituality, exercise. And right now there's been a false narrative that to be professionally successful, you need to be 100% focused on this gold bubble. And until recently, we had our different bubbles and we knew how to successfully navigate them. That was a world we had pretty well down. And we've been trained to keep these bubbles separate, to compartmentalize. We're rewarded when we can smoothly bounce between the bubbles, and we're punished when we can't. A sick family member might have an impact on your job security. An imposing deadline might prevent you from enjoying hobbies. We were constantly having to choose between the false narrative or false choice of work versus life, when in reality, each person is composed of thousands of these bubbles, right? These are just 4 examples, but we are complex people. There are all sorts of facets of our lives. And right now, everything is changing because of COVID-19. So the new question has become, what happens when all of those bubbles collide at once, right? So suddenly, politics might be affecting your job security. COVID-19 is preventing you from seeing family and friends. You can't go to worship in public or decompress at your local body pump class. Happy hours now necessitate technology. Your workspace has invaded your living quarters. Grocery shopping is now considered a high-risk act. Like, what is this world that we're living in? We're in a situation now where we cannot fully compartmentalize. We can't switch between our bubbles because they're all merging at once. All of a sudden, your boss is in your living room. Your coworkers are seeing a cat walk across your keyboard that they didn't even know you had. Your 4-year-old is curiously poking their head into your weekly team check-ins. Your dog barking incessantly at the mailman has become the most dramatic part of your day. So we're all trying to cope with these changes, the manifestation of all of these bubbles colliding at once, and it's really uncharted territory for a lot of us. This is a funny tweet from Senator Tammy Duckworth. She said, "Today I didn't realize I was off mute and told the Democratic caucus, including a couple recent presidential candidates, that Mommy is working, honey. Please go potty and wash your hands, and then Mommy will come downstairs. How's your working from home going?" To which Amy Klobuchar tweeted, "That was my favorite part of the call." So, this merging of bubbles is happening at all levels of our society. All of these bubbles are colliding at once, and a lot of us are having trouble coping. So, working from home definitely has its challenges, but again, there's an opportunity here to hit the reset button on some really unhealthy habits that we may have established up until now. And this presentation is about finding healthy compartmentalization habits. So with almost 25 years of experience remote working under our belt, PSM has some really helpful insights to offer folks who are working from home. And our tips will let you establish a new routine that's really going to help you switch gears and recompartmentalize in a healthier way. So here are our best tips for setting yourself up for success while working from home. First, wake up early-ish, and the ish is an important caveat there. So, getting the green light to work remotely does not mean reverting to your 17-year-old sleeping habits. We're not asking you to sleep your day away here. This is an opportunity to reset your circadian rhythm, right? So, according to Gallup, 40% of US adults get less than the recommended 8 hours of sleep. So if your new daily structure allows it, which I'm guessing it probably does, try getting more sleep. You'd be shocked at the implications of, sleep deprivation in your day-to-day life. I mean, it really impacts everything from your ability to focus, your ability to, have patience when you're dealing with other people. There are just a slew of impacts that sleep deprivation could have been having on your life. So just try getting a minimum of 8 hours of sleep and see how that changes your demeanor and your outlook and how you feel physically. It's really a powerful thing when you get enough sleep. Make your bed. Okay, so hear me out on this one. Making your bed in the morning is a really, really great way to mentally trigger a change in your environment. So it's a way to compartmentalize the rest portion of your day with the active portion. And just a simple act like that might be enough to really, really shift your mentality. And it might have an effect on your productivity for the entire day. So just give that a shot sometime. Shower. Okay, so don't let your personal hygiene slip when you're working remotely. Your pets will thank you, your family will thank you. If you don't shower every day or you like to shower in the evenings, you can, think about replacing this step with, any type of positive daily routine. Maybe you like to listen to a podcast, make a hot cup of coffee, whatever it is. Just make sure that there's something in your morning that you can dependably rely on as something to help you create that mental shift. Another very important one is getting dressed. So I know it's really tempting, but do not work in your jammies. Wake up, put on real person clothes, and think about going to work. Unless you have a big meeting, clothes are, casual Friday attire is going to become the new norm. So it's really important that you just get up, you get dressed, think about what you're going to wear. It's a sign of self-respect and also another great way to just mentally trigger that you are getting up and you are going to work. Another thing that's extremely helpful in that is commuting. So, we're used to probably getting in the car between 6 and 7 a.m., driving however long it takes you to get to work, two ways, right? So when you're working from home, a lot of people find it really, really helpful to go for a short walk outside right when you get up in the morning. You could take your pup for a quick walk, get some fresh air, then prepare for the workday ahead. Going around the block is a great way to just flip the switch that you are going to work. And I know a lot of these are just mental tricks, but honestly, I've been working from home for 6 years and they're tried and true. All right, have a designated workspace. So this is another one, like working from your jammies, that people kind of mess up a lot here. So one of the biggest mistakes that I hear from people is that they got in the habit of working remotely from their bedroom. So please, please, please do not work from bed. It takes a toll on you physically. It's really hard to, maintain that posture for, think of, if you're having 8 hours of sleep plus you're prone all day long, it can just really have negative effects on your posture. But even more than that, it's going back to that mental switch that I referred to earlier. We want your sleep space to be just that. So, physical space plays a really crucial role in compartmentalization, and finding a space that you can designate as your own little home office can really make a world of difference. So whether you're working from your kitchen table, the counter, even just setting up shop, in your living room, that can all make such a big difference to have a physical place that you commute to. And then at the end of your workday, make sure that you're actually leaving for the day, even if it's just mentally. I have a friend who every day she works from her living room, and at night, obviously, she wants to hang out there. And so what she does is every day she shuts down her computer, like shuts down all the way, And then she walks around her coffee table 3 times, just as a mental measure of like leaving the office for the day. So, do what you have to, find something that works for you, but try to have a designated workspace that's just for work. All right, take breaks. This is also an important one. So when working from home, nobody judges you for taking breaks in the middle of the day. It's totally great. You can get up, you can walk around, give your pet some love, do a little yoga, whatever. There are perks of working from home, and you shouldn't just be carrying on like you're still at the office and you can't have any distractions and, um, you're working from home. You should be able to take advantage of some of those little perks. And taking breaks is an essential part of that. It's good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health. It's a great way to actually maintain focus later in the day. All right, next up, we have be proactive about distractions. If you don't know what this screenshot is, I have attached it hopefully to this GoToWebinar presentation as one of the handouts. It's a YouTube link to this man who is on a BBC live broadcast, and his little child like saunters into the room, and then like 2 seconds later, he's got a little baby in a little rolly cart who waddles in, and then the wife runs in and tries to collect the children, and it's just a series of comical errors. But highly recommend you give that a watch. But it also teaches us a very valuable lesson about being proactive about distractions. So if you have precocious children, barking dogs, whatever it might be, it's really important that you plan ahead if you have, hugely important calls or whatever. If you live with other people, maybe older kids or a partner, you should enlist their help. Say, hey, I've got a webinar at 11:30 this morning. Would you mind making sure that the dogs don't, go Cujo when the mailman comes? So that's a really important facet here. But then the other thing is, if you do live alone, just be straightforward with the people that you're meeting with. People will understand the minor distractions that might come up, right? Because everyone's bubbles are colliding right now. So everyone is going to have a higher level of patience and understanding. We get it. It's the rules have changed, and I think everyone is doing a really good job sort of being understanding and having patience. All right, set boundaries. So when it comes to your physical space, it is very important to set boundaries. This is my little rescue dog named Margot. She likes to climb up onto my work desk when I'm not paying attention or if I leave the room, and she just sits there demanding attention. So for me, it's very important to set boundaries by physically removing my dogs from my workspace, making sure my office door is shut and locked. And that's my personal boundary issue that I have to deal with in my life. I know people who are parents are also dealing with a whole other set of boundary issues that might come up with your kids. We don't have any kids yet, so this is all hearsay, but just make sure that you're able to set some physical boundaries in your physical space. The other thing here about boundaries is, if you're done working at 5 o'clock, if you set your hard stop for the day is going to be 5 o'clock, then just be done working. Don't answer any more emails, don't take any more work calls. Working from home is a really wonderful chance to find and expand your personal work style. And the other thing is your most productive time of day might change. You might have been really, really productive at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but now, it's at the point where you can shift your work day. So you can set whatever those boundaries are. You can say, I'm going to work every day from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. and that might work for you. The really important thing here though is that you manage the expectations of your coworkers and your boss and your clients so that whatever expectations you're setting for yourself and your family are also being communicated to the people in your professional sphere. So if you have a hard stop at 4:30, just make sure that your coworkers know that, so they don't send you an email asking that something be completed by the end of the day that you didn't get because you set that boundary of having a hard stop at 4:30. So it's okay to set those boundaries, just make sure that you're communicating and managing those expectations. All right, staying connected. So I highly recommend using video conferencing software to stay connected with your coworkers, maybe just your favorite coworkers, whoever you want, right? Because physical isolation does not need to be social isolation. So almost every day I'm co-working, that's what we call it, co-working with different resources at our company, and sometimes we don't even talk. We just sit there and independently do our work. And if we have a question for one another, it's a great time to do that. And there are some days where I don't really feel like co-working and I just want to put my headphones on and jam away and just have a really, really productive work day. But you should have that option to co-work and to use video conferencing to really maintain that social aspect of work, because for a lot of people, they're really grieving those lost relationships that they had at the office. So at PSM, we use a video conferencing service called Whereby for our online meetings. They offer a free plan that can host up to like 4 people for calls. They also have paid plans that can host up to like 50 people. So it's a really, really great service, but there are also tons of other options. There's GoToMeeting, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, all sorts of fun options there. Another thing when you're staying connected with folks is to make sure that you're really checking in mentally and physically with them. Just make sure that you're asking how they're actually doing. And this is such a hard time for so many people, and a lot of people are struggling more than they're letting on. So it's a nice thing to do to just check in and make sure that you're, being attentive of the needs of the people in your circles. All right, so don't forget to eat. This seems like an intuitive thing, but a lot of people who are used to working in offices, maybe they prepped their lunches the night before and they just, I don't know, it's easy to fall into unhealthy eating habits. But let me assure you that hanger does not help anyone. And if you're used to preparing your lunch the night before, keep that up, keep doing it, do whatever you need to do, and maintain the habits that are going to work for you. Okay, play that funky music. This is a really serious one. But when you don't have any office mates, no cubicle mates to complain, it means that you can jam to your favorite tunes with absolutely no shame. This is something to take advantage of. We don't get to work remotely all the time, and I know the situation is quite dire, but this is one tiny little silver lining. You can like blare your Alicia Keys, your Eagles, doesn't matter, but whatever it is, find the music that brings you joy and just go to town. And if you're someone who finds music distracting, then do not do that. Instead, I recommend using like a white noise generator or noise canceling headphones. That's also a really important thing if you have, a lot of smaller distractions in your house, like pets or children or, whatever it is. Noise canceling headphones can be really helpful just in maintaining that productivity. Use your time wisely. So I asked a lot of friends before this presentation, and actually months before the pandemic, I asked, if you were to show up at work, how many hours would it realistically take you to complete your work tasks every day? And almost without fail, people said it would take them between 5 and 6 hours. So that means people are being forced to stay at the office for 8 hours, but their work only takes them 5 to 6 hours. So again, this is a cool opportunity working from home, because in addition to the hours that it takes you, being productive with your work, you're also saving time commuting, right? By not commuting. So the question is, how can you work this time into your day to enhance your productivity, your creativity, and your happiness? And for some of you, that might mean, taking a 20-minute nap in the middle of the day. For others, it might mean stopping your work to play video games or read a book, or it might just mean cutting your workday off at 3 o'clock if your work, permits that. So your work obviously should take priority, but don't deny yourself the small joys that come with a flexible schedule. This might be a one-time thing. It might happen again in the future, who knows? But for now, take advantage of this flexibility while you can. All right, move your body. So it's so important to include physical movement in your day, even if it's minimal. Stretching, working from the kitchen counter if you're sitting at a desk all day, doing some short exercises, taking a quick walk. Um, all of these things just help you stay focused and stay healthy while you're working from home. And I also want you to pay special attention to your posture when you're working from home, especially if you're working from, a sofa or some sort of plush chair. I think I mentioned earlier in the presentation that can really have a negative effect on just your body in general. And the other thing, if you're spending long durations in a new office chair or a desk that's a different height, I've heard a lot of people complaining about like their elbows being sore or their wrists, and they're showing sort of carpal tunnel symptoms. And that can all just be related to your actual posture at your workspace. So, if you are having issues like that, consider making just some slight adjustments to, how high is your keyboard, and just little things like that can really have a big impact on your ability to stay productive. And I'm sure if you just do a quick Google search, that will yield many helpful results about, setting up correct posture when you're working from home. And then lastly here, I want to talk about just staying social. We're not recommending that you just waste your days away on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, whatever. But most businesses do not allow employees to use social media during work hours. But now that you're working from home, I think you should enjoy a little bit of social media time. It's a really great opportunity to focus on networking and reconnecting with old contacts. And just remember, if you have more time in your day because you're not commuting or you're being more productive or more efficient at work, figure out good ways to use that, healthy ways to use that time. So if you're concerned about time management, also consider setting a timer. If you're someone who can just get lost in Facebook and not pay any attention to anything else, consider setting a timer. All right, so now we're going to just chat briefly about a few resources that I think are really helpful in keeping you grounded and centered during this time of uncertainty. So the first one is an app called Calm. And Calm provides guided meditation and guiding breathing exercises. There are bedtime stories, soothing background noise like rainforests and thunderstorms. It's one of the top apps for meditation, so I would be surprised if you haven't heard of it, but if you haven't, it's great. You should check it out. Another app that I absolutely love is called Simply Noise, and this is my go-to app when I'm just really needing to amp up my productivity. So I always turn on some white noise. I turn it on to oscillate, kind of like a fan. And then what I always do is I turn on some music from my library, and I just sort of play that low in the background. And I layer those two things, the white noise and the music, and it just, that's my productivity hot zone. And then another really great resource is Brene Brown. If you've never heard of Brene Brown, she hosts the Unlocking Us podcast. It's her newest podcast. And she has a TED Talk called The Power of Vulnerability, which is one of the top 5 most viewed TED Talks in the world with over 45 million views. She's also the first researcher to have a filmed lecture on Netflix. It's called The Call to Courage. And it was specially debuted in like April of 2019. So if you haven't heard of Brene Brown, definitely check her out. This podcast is phenomenal. Talks a lot about courage and vulnerability. I think the official line is, in a time when we're trying to navigate challenging relationships, Unlocking Us is just a really phenomenal podcast. It focuses on conversations that unlock the deeply human part of who we are so that we can live, love, parent, and lead with more courage and heart. So if you've not heard of Brene Brown, check her out. She's awesome. Whereby is that video conferencing software that I referenced earlier in the presentation. It's what we use at PSM, but there are a ton of other options out there, Zoom, GoToMeeting, Google Hangouts. The options are pretty much endless, but we at PSM can vouch for Whereby. All right, there's also this really wonderful app. I know it's made for Macs, but I'm sure there's some equivalent for the PC users out there. This app is called Serene, and it's an app that helps you achieve maximum productivity every day. And there are really two key principles behind the app, which are both backed by awesome scientific studies. So the first idea is that the app it helps you set a single day goal, and it helps you stay focused on achieving that goal throughout the day. And then the second role that Serene plays is blocking access to distracting websites. So if you're a person who's especially susceptible to distraction during your workday, definitely consider an app like Serene. And then lastly, The Daily is a daily news podcast and radio show by the New York Times. It's hosted by Times political journalist Michael Barbaro, and its episodes are based on the Times reporting of the day with interviews of journalists from the New York Times. So, it has a lot of really great concise information about COVID-19 that's not presented in a way that's overwhelming or hyperbolic. So if you're looking for just a nice daily summary of, current events, highly recommend the Daily podcast. So with that, I will open it up to questions. And if you'd like to submit a question, it's not too late. You can still do that using the GoToMeeting control panel. Let's see here. Okay, so we have a question here asking, do we recommend using Zoom or other video conferencing? Zoom is a great option. I know there have been some negative stories about it lately with people, hackers accessing Zoom and sort of presenting salacious content during educational sessions, which is pretty troubling. But yeah, I mean, Zoom, I've never had any issues like that with Zoom. But as I mentioned earlier, Whereby is sort of our default, but we've worked with a lot of different video conferencing tools, and that's just one of them. Okay, we have another question here asking, what sort of productive music recommendations do I have? You get too distracted by the music with lyrics while you're trying to work. Okay, yep, that's a really great question. My answer is sort of embarrassing because I'm a total sci-fi fantasy nerd. So what I listen to is the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. Just the instrumental music I think is really beautiful and epic, and it totally hypes me up when I'm trying to be productive. So yeah, if you're looking for productive music, I would say anything without lyrics, maybe like classical music. There are a lot of cool chill vibe beats on Spotify. Lots of good options for lyricless music. We have another recommendation for EDM, electro dance music. Lots of good comments coming in here. Let's see here. We have a question, does Serene also work with PCs? I know it's primarily an app for Macs, but I would not be surprised if there is some sort of equivalent. Either they have a PC version or, there's, I'm sure, a competitor of Serene that would create that. Any other questions here? All right. Well, if you enjoyed this webinar, please make sure to register for our upcoming presentations. We have the importance of SEO for small businesses during COVID-19 and marketing coaching tips and strategies during the pandemic. Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you stay on the call, you'll be directed to an evaluation form, and we'd really appreciate your feedback so we can continue offering relevant free webinars. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks a lot.